Well, what's going on, fellow zombies? I hope you can still read this damn thing. If it's still working. 3:14 p.m. on the West Coast time. It is February 26, 2025 for Wednesday. I'm trying to get hip slick on the news of what's happening, and everything else is going to hell in a handbasket. So you'll forgive me if I'm still struggling and trying to get some of these communication methods going. I discovered that CNN is charging subscriptions. LA Times did that. Now CNN, you can watch it on cable news, but I wanted to get the articles. I have to subscribe to CNN, $5 a month. I kid you not. When we have cable news network who had never charged a damn thing for their articles because the information was out there for the press and they would get their donations and their financing from corporates and advertisers and sponsors and stuff. Now they got charged to the little guy. Unbelievable. Yeah, I kid you not. So in order to get a free in order to get the articles, it's one thing watching the television being subscribed to streaming or cable. But if one wants to look at the articles, one has to pay for them. The House had passed a bill last night, the House Reconciliation. They're sending it over to the Senate right now to get hopefully solidified before our country goes into default. But it's taken away our Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, Social Security. They say it's not written in the language, but it is in there. The devil's in the details. The departments that run them, the agriculture for the food, health for Medicare, Medicaid, their budgets will be slashed. And we are all going to be facing it, and not to mention a widening deficit within the next 10 years that we're never going to be able to recover because they want their fucking tax cuts for the billionaires. Which this department runs Medicare? That's and trying to get this information, they've got advertisements all over the damn place. We have a federally funded agency called the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They had been pilfered. They have been touched by the Doge. I'm wondering how bad it's going to be at this point over here because these guys are going to be on the chopping block. But it's not just that, it's the Senate. It's the Senate that's going to be going after this. One second, one thing I'm trying to get in here. Okay. What should you see? CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. From what Medicare would say, and I'm just trying to get that information out, it is a branch of the Department of Health and Human Services. So I said before. And because of that, Medicare is paid through two trust funds account held by the Treasury, which also had been pilfered through. Payroll taxes, income taxes, interest earned, premiums that pays the Hospital Insurance Trust Fund. Supplemental medical insurance, funds authorized by Congress. But because of the Department of Health and Human Services, this is where it gets tricky, because if they are decreased, which means we're going to take a hit on the Medicare, which means there will be surcharges that the patients will be facing, regardless of which medical insurance company they've got. Hell, you could have Medi-Medi and you're still going to be able to get something paid. If the state won't do it and the federal won't do it, you're going to have to be doing it by, depending which insurance company is going to be doing the Medi-Medi. And if you actually do qualify for the Medi-Medi, that means Medicaid, Medicare, or shall I say Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever kind of insurance supplemental you're going to be paying for, you're going to be paying for through the nose and arm, leg, and everything else. This isn't a scare tactic. This is reality. This is what the Congress had passed. Now, because they were passing a continuing resolution at this point over here, there should be no filibustering in the House Senate on this. But we'll see if it happens or not. But Department of Health and Human Services, a lot of the seniors and disabled depend upon this. They depend upon this a great deal. But unfortunately, our budget is going to get slashed on this one. Because the billionaires want more money. They want more tax cuts. And the hell with everybody else. I know I probably am repeating the lines that the independents are saying, but we've been talking about this damn thing for years. Decades they've been talking about this damn thing. The reason why they had the Obamacare is so people wouldn't be hit as hard. And they were trying to get negotiations for lower drug prices. But unfortunately, because we got stockholders and greedy CEOs, people invested, they want everybody else to pay for it. Like everyone else has got the money to pay for the health insurance as it is. Health insurance is a complicated, convoluted animal that's been out there for decades. A lot longer than I've been alive. We had several non-profit organizations out there, but because they couldn't keep up in the market and trying to keep up with their finances, they had to switch to for-profit. And there goes the rut, because for-profit means we can take more out of the members for less coverage. Even the HMOs are supposed to be negotiating contracts, but there's only so much you're going to be able to access, and if it's going to be medically necessary or not. And if it's going to be a hell of a lot more, then hopefully you've got another insurance policy to back up the other one, because there may be limitations in the health policy. See, I used to work for a Blue back in California. Still in California. I got in where they changed over from the non-profit to the for-profit, and they changed their corporate name. They were still known as Blue Cross California, but / WellPoint. And yeah, I had been involved with the claims and benefits and eligibility. I had learned about HMOs. I had learned about the PPOs. But I learned about those in different classes I'd taken before I got the job. So at least I was covering some bases over here on how it was going to work out. The HMOs I thought were the cheapest thing, but they were very restrictive. And if I wasn't going to go drastic on people, or myself, then the HMOs would be fine for maintaining my health. And it did for a while. There had been some things that I needed to do, Monies I had to pour out because of copays, but I had to do that. A certain deductible, an out-of-pocket max, a lifetime max. That'll get you right there. People keep forgetting about the lifetime max because some policies I came across a long time ago, and that maybe now, I don't know. I haven't seen the policies these days, but if there are any lifetime max, that's as much as you have within the life of the policy itself to utilize how much of it. Little to how much. And once you reach that limit, you have to get yourself a new policy altogether. Now, I don't know how the bureaucracy is right now, because I can tell you back then, it was a monster anyway. So right now, it's probably Godzilla. Or worse. But even if one happens to get the PPO policy, and that's that's a lateral, looser policy, but you still have to pay out of the good graces of your bank accounts. I think I talked about this one a long time ago about it. When I worked for them back in the 90s, the 2000s, from late 90s to several years of 2000s, until they got through. Oh, long story on that one. Companies going like this at each other, and then starting to kind of swallow up the other guy, and then you become a bigger bloated fish, and then you see a bigger bloated fish going, Lip! That's what happened to us. We were trying to get the smaller guys. Loop. We became bigger and bigger and bigger until we had something back east. Loop. And started spitting out the employees. Yep. But while I was in there for the well point, while they were gobbling things up, I was seeing claims coming through. As I understood the structure of the PPO a long time ago, and I could never understand everything else after that because I thought the policies were ridiculous as hell. I mean, health savings funds or health savings accounts, so much money you're allowed per year to use on your medical. But here's the problem: if you didn't use it for the entire year and you had the next year, you had to throw more money into it because the money that you had previously gone. It was so stupid. Still is. Well, while I was in the HMO, it was one thing, but the PPO, you still had a lifetime max in the policy. You still had deductibles at that point. You had the out-of-pocket expenses. You still had your copays. I mean, first off, you look at the amount. Okay, I got maybe 1 or 2 million on this policy, right? Good. That's the lifetime of the policy. That's how much of a limit you've got. Once you reach that limit, you had to get a new policy, depending on how medically screwed up you are. Me being, if I was having that kind of policy and I was still working at that company, I would still have to get to the deductible annual. The annual deductible for it. Wouldn't that be nice? So let's just say I had a deductible, say, of $2,000 a month. Okay, easier, $1,500. But not a month, for a year. Other people could have been a hell of a lot worse. But this is what we have right now. So, you had about $1,500, not a month, but a year. And let's just say that you have a chronic health condition. Hypothetically, I'm throwing this thing out. Okay. But take my, let's put me on there, okay? Instead of me having a HMO, I had selected a PPO. Okay, I'm still working for the company. I still got selected a PPO. What's this deal for me? Well, let's see. I still got about 2 million policy right there. But then every year I had to match the annual deductible of $1,500 or maybe $2,000, depending which policy I happen to select in my lunacy. Which meant I'd have to match up I think it was per month that I had to match $1,500. If not, I had to pay for the full amount until maybe something else happened. I think it was either a yearly or a monthly. I wasn't quite sure which. Maybe he's a little hazy on that one. I had come across monthly and I had come across yearly. But if it wasn't yearly, it was $1,500. Okay, fine. We'll use that one as an example. My office visits weren't all that often. I'd come in, maybe spend about how much of the office visit right there? $50 a day or $50 a visit. If it was an HMO, they'd limit about $5 or $10 or $20 a visit, depending on the policy that you got. But a PPO, you'd pay for the entire thing. Could have been $500. For one lousy visit coming in for initial? Are you kidding me? Some doctors were charging that. Or was that the ER visits or urgent cares that would be charging that kind of an arm and leg with a chainsaw ready to go? There goes your limbs. But once you met the deductible, then here comes the percentages. And it gets even worse for PPO and HMO. For an HMO, you're locked into a group of physicians and a group of a medical group here that whatever services you're going to need, it's going to be within that group. You go outside the group, you're considered out of network, and then you're open season. But if it's an emergency situation, you would only be responsible for what, and this is what happened to a family member of mine. You would be only responsible for the ER copay, and if there was any emergency room, or actually inpatient stays. Case of my brother and I, we went over to Disneyland one time. I don't know, probably 2001, 2002, somewhere in that time period. And David had an injury at the amusement park. They sent him over to the hospital. They checked his back, pulled a muscle, rest up a little bit. He'd be ready to go. Pain medications, and he'd be okay. If it had been a lot worse on the situation there, according to his insurance policy at the time, he would have been responsible for so much of a copay per night. But it was just an ER visit. And it was an ambulance ride. So what the hell we did? We went back over to Disneyland and we had fun. And we came back home. We didn't tell Ma until later on, until like 1 or 2 days later, and then she had a conniption fit. But it's only like within 2 or 3 weeks we received the invoice from the ambulance company. And then we received the invoices from the hospital and the doctors. Me being savvy enough during that time regarding the insurance, I knew my brother was getting balanced bill for something. Any other layman wouldn't figure this thing out unless they were a little bit savvy on the insurance policies that they have. You really would have to keep on top of this stuff, especially monitoring and keeping your health records straight. So I had to write a letter to all of them saying my brother was out of area emergency. And according to his HMO policy, he's only responsible for this copay only. And that's it. I even wrote it over to Disney a long time ago. After that, my brother didn't worry about anything but a simple copay. And that was taken care of, I think, by Disney during that time because it happened on their lot in their time. And because things happened over there, it was their responsibility. So they took care of it quietly. Cool. No problem. No issues on that. But let's just say if I was not going to Disneyland, my brother was and I were not going anywhere else but out of area, and something happened to him. Under an HMO, depending upon the added area and according to the contract we signed up for, certain copays for inpatient and ER. Fine. PPO is a hell of a lot worse. See, with PPO, you don't know which particular doctor is going to be contracted or not unless you check them out, and if they are part of your network. If they are assigned to a hospital, and you're in that hospital and you're being treated by that doctor, you're covered under network. But if you're got treated by another doctor who's not under your insurance policy, none whatsoever, you're going to be facing bills on that one. And then you're going to have to be screaming and yelling over customer service in hell to go through the explanations of what the hell happened and tell you where your liabilities are. I only worked with the doctors in hospitals. I didn't work with the patients. Maybe I should have worked with the patients more. But when you get a hell of a lot older, you're going to be depending upon more and more medical services, including, if I have to say it, in-home health services. Who gets to pay for that one? Medicaid? Medicare? If it's contracted, fine. But if it's not, guess who gets to pay for it out of pocket? That's what I'm afraid of for myself. I'm in an environment that they wouldn't be able to touch. And if they did, oof, I have issues. Maybe so. I don't know. But I'm not going to bring that up with them just yet. But if Congress happens and the whole administration is going to be screwing us over one way or another just because they want the money. They're going to get it one way or another. They're going to get it out of our pockets one way or another. I don't mind a damn tax situation. You know, there's even word about them abolishing the IRS and just doing a flat tax. Everybody will be doing a flat tax. They'll be equal. They'll be fine. No, it won't. Because if tax is that high for everybody, including the lower people, we get screwed over because we're going to be paying for taxes instead of the initial. And anybody else on a higher tax bracket isn't going to go and worry about the damn. Isn't going to worry about it. But for the working stiff or non-working, disabled, we're going to be worrying about it. I don't mind if they had different tax brackets. Maybe a little bit of a lower one so the people down below can actually deal with it. Pay their fair share. But also have a higher one but they're not going to have that. Not with the Congress and not with the administration we've got. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And the other thing, I think the last thing I'm going to be saying about this one is the government is trying to say that don't badmouth us. Yeah, we can because the First Amendment rights gives us a right. But I'm also bad-mouthing America because they voted these assholes in, despite the fact that people say, no, I didn't do that. Because of our voting records that we have in each state, it's supposed to be anonymous except for records somewhere being kept by the political parties. And they know how to reach us because I keep getting phone calls and emails and text messages from one particular party I belong to. We want more money. We need to know this. I ain't got the money for you. Click. Vote for this person over here. I don't know who the hell they are until I research them. Click. That's how I've been doing it. We gotta defeat. We have to defeat. We need to defeat. Okay, you have the feet to deal with. I'm not dealing with it just yet. But I am going to say my piece. I'm going to say my piece and it'll probably get me kicked off. I made comments in my postings in different places. Damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. Captain John Paul Jones. Revolutionary War. 1776 had a lot of good quotes and it had a lot of good things happening in there. So much that all hell was breaking loose during those days. And in 1860, the two numbers I keep throwing out to people. Revolutionary War and everything involved in the damn thing, precluder to the afterwards. And then we have the Civil War, everything before, during, and after. Take your pick of examples. Take an example of what kind of ideologies and what things we're going to be dealing with. Oh yeah, two major wars in our country that affected us a great deal. From us trying to get the hell away from England. And then we're trying to keep our sanity going by trying to kill each other. People keep wondering and asking themselves, how's history going to be judging us? I'm going to be asking myself, how the hell am I going to be judging myself after this? Am I open season now for all the Trumplicans out there? For the trash bag and a mush mouth? Mush face, actually, I call them. The arrogance, egocentric behaviors that they're generating, how to scare the hell out of everybody. Yeah. And how's that going to be affecting me here? Good question. Wish I had a good answer for that one. But I'm not leaving this country. No, they're gonna have to dump my ass in a body bag or somewhere. This is my home. This is my country. This is my state. That's all I gotta say.